Hey, we are going to look into the Word together today. I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited, because I've got something really tough to say. Hey, is this thing working? Is this on? Is this on? Is this on? Check, 1, 2. Are we working at the back there? We've got all the technicians helping us. Every time I see this picture, it actually makes me feel like it's ice above. I don't know, maybe that's a Canadian thing. I don't know, if in the winter time, which I feel like it is now, even though in Canada it's not, it's actually boiling hot there if you don't know that. But in the wintertime, we would always get lessons at school about ice. Don't walk on the ice. Don't go on the ice. Why are you on the ice? Get off the ice. Don't be on the ice. Is not safe. Because we all knew that there'd be a demonstration or program in school where they would show somebody falling through the ice and they go, oh, I'm in the ice. And the teachers go, don't walk on the ice. Because I grew up near places where if you walked on the ice, you would break and you'd fall through. And then I always felt like I would get trapped underneath. Like, I don't know, like I kind of felt like, I don't know why, but I just assumed I go under, then I go under the ice. I don't know, is there a current or something? How did I end up so far from the hole I just fell in? But I just imagined that I would always be there trapped beneath the ice. And I kind of feel like that's sort of the topic of this month. Breakthrough is like you're sitting beneath the ice and there's life and breath above it, but you're stuck and you can't break through. And how do you break through? What's required? When I was searching for pictures of Trapped Beneath the Ice, I discovered the lyrics from Metallica's song, Trapped Beneath Ice. I do like a few Metallica tunes, don't hate me for that. But I didn't know this one, but I thought these words are great. I don't know how to live through this hell. Woken up, I'm still locked in this shell. Frozen soul, frozen down to the core. Break the ice, I can't take anymore. And now, if you hear those words, I think every one of us could immediately identify something in our life that kind of feels like that. We are stuck in a place that we don't want to be, and it's freezing us, and it's not what we want. And how do we get through? How do we break through that thing? If you were to ask that question of yourself, what is I don't know, guys, I've lost this again. It might be me. It could be my battery. Oh, here we go. What is the ice? What is the barrier that you can't get through? And in every environment, in every moment with a different group of people, the barrier is going to be something different. It could be emotional, it could be practical, it could be financial, it could be relational, it could be something in your body that needs a miracle, it could be a revelation that you just don't understand. But what is the reason that you can't get through that barrier? Is there a reason that you can't get through? In the story of Exodus, we find the story of the people of God who are in slavery. They are in need of breakthrough. They are an oppressed people, oppressed at that time by the largest nation in the world with the most significant military force, and they are impoverished people who have no chance of finding their own freedom. And it says that during those days, the king of Egypt died. This is the time Israel went down there. And the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. What did God know? Right now, if you are stuck, you might have an impression that God is not aware of your trial, that he doesn't care. He doesn't concern about the fact that you're not living the life that you feel called to, or the health that you need, or the hope that you need, or the answers that you need. You might feel like, I'm stuck and God doesn't care. But the truth is God always sees. God knows. And God knows everything about you. You see, when God responded to that trial, he sends a deliverer, Moses. And then Moses becomes an example to all of us on how to break through, how to get through the impossible. He says in Exodus 3 verse 9, he says, now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression to which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So this month, Pastor Ash and I, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about this month, we decided that we would pick different characters from the Old Testament and just look at their stories of breakthrough. Like, what was it? And last week, Pastor Ash shared excellently, didn't he, on Gideon and the story of Gideon, on how he became a man who saw breakthrough in his community. Today, I want to talk about Moses and how God calls Moses to be a man who leads the community in breakthrough. But I want to talk about why and how God shaped him for that. You see, Moses had been there before. If God did not need to tell Moses that the people of Israel were oppressed. Moses used to live there and he saw that. He saw the people being oppressed all of the time. He is completely aware, just as God is completely aware, of the oppression of God's precious people. But Moses has had a shot at this before as well. He's tried to bring them out into their freedom. He's tried to do something about their problem. It says one day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people. Now, if you don't know the story, well, not many people don't, but he was an Israelite person who was raised in Pharaoh's household. So he lives like an Egyptian, not walks like an Egyptian. He lives like an Egyptian, but he's actually an Israelite person. And he's aware of that. It's not like he doesn't know. He does know, but he's living a privileged life and his people are suffering. But one day he's grown up, he went out to his people and he looked at their burdens and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hit him in the sand, and revolution began. Well, you all know that the story didn't go like that, right? Like but it totally could have, right? Like he goes, I've heard it, and he, boom, and he beats the bad guy, and he's just, he's Superman, he's Batman, he's got a utility belt, he's ready for anything. And then the story goes that Moses, the next day, the people are at his door going, Moses, you can lead us in this fight against the oppressor. And Moses goes, God is with us, and he rallies the people, and they march out of their slavery with supernatural power. No, because the next day, this is what happened. He went out the next day, behold, two Hebrews were struggling together, because apparently you can fight amongst yourselves and not just with your oppressors. And he said to the man in the wrong, why do you strike your companion? He answered, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid, and he thought, surely this thing has become known. And Pharaoh heard of it. And he sought to kill Moses. And Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian. If you don't know where Midian is, it's just outside of Egypt, right? It's outside of his control. He's in the safe zone. Do you ever have safe zones when you were playing with your brothers and sisters? Imaginary zones where you felt like everything was fine, but it's not. He was just there. He's just, get me away from the danger. Great Moses! Ran away, he did. Brave Sir Moses went and hid. Nobody? Nobody's with me? No? Monty Python? No? Sir Robin? No, okay, all right. Moses didn't want breakthrough to cost him so much. And Moses was afraid and he thought, surely this thing is known. You see, when God saw the people of Israel, God also knew. God knows. God knows everything. But Moses thought that he could deliver the people from oppression with a little bit of some of this. Just a little try here on the edge. Just one day on Tuesday in the evening, please. Not all my life. Not like everything. Like I just want the problem to go away with a nice letter to the president. Can we just solve this the simple way? I don't want this thing to cost me my entire life. Now, in Numbers 11, we see his attitude crop up again. He's leading the people in their deliverance, and he goes, I'm not able to carry all these people alone. The burden is too heavy for me. If you will treat me like this, then kill me at once. If I find favor in your sight, then I might not see my righteousness, You see, the problem is, Moses has a vision for the people's freedom and deliverance, but he doesn't have the attitude to go with it. Now, you might have a vision for your life being better. Do you have the attitude that will get you there? Moses eventually learns, the scriptures teach us, that he learned the value in suffering. It says in Hebrews 11, which is kind of like the summary of Moses' highlights of faith. It says that by faith, Moses, when he'd grown up, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. And he considered the reproach of Christ of greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking forward to a reward. That some of those words in there, I'll show you. He chose rather to be mistreated, which is sukakchiu, which means he endures the persecution together with the people of God. He wasn't suffering, they were suffering, so he chose to join in their suffering, rather than enjoying, which is apolusis, to have full enjoyment of the fleeting pleasures of sin. Because you see, he considered reproach of Christ, joining in the reproach of Christ, greater wealth than all of the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking forward to his reward. Now, your attitude to pain, my attitude to pain, discomfort, trials, and suffering is always going to determine the likelihood of your breakthrough. I just want to prove it to you because you already believe it in a way, because you've already seen this in your life. I just want to prove this to you, that your attitude to pain, discomfort, trials, and suffering determines the likelihood of your breakthrough. Let me tell you a little story. Most of you know, but if you don't, surprise. I've been seeing a psychiatrist for about the last year. And one of the reasons that I went to see a psychiatrist, and I actually really, really think it's a very positive thing to go and get counseling or help with somebody who can, if you recognize that you're not living at your best and you don't know how to get there, I recommend going and seeing people who can help you talk that through. Now, what I did was, I'm going to see, now one of my issues, this might surprise you, I'm actually a bit anxious. Weirdly, I'm not at all anxious about this. Like everyone else, Ash is like, preaching, kill me now. And I'm like, oh, preaching, okay, what next? It doesn't faze me. Talking to you afterwards makes me anxious. Isn't that weird? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, do you ever kind of wonder why you're weird the way you are and weird like you are? I mean, not that because you're weird, it makes me anxious. We're all weird. I'm anxious, you're weird, we're all weird. Okay, I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'll get to that later. Now, so I went and I was talking to my psychiatrist about these kind of anxieties. So I'll be, the whole journey down to church today, I feel anxious, just so you know. I feel anxious, not about this. I feel anxious about talking to everybody afterwards. I don't want to talk to everybody afterwards, just a few. But I'm also anxious about other things. Sometimes I get really anxious when really angry people confront me. Anybody like that? You don't like really angry people? I get anxious about that. I get anxious about other things in my life too. And so I was talking to my psychiatrist about anxiety, and he said, why don't you listen to this book? So I listened to the book. It's called Dealing with the Noise in Your Head. It's a great book. But in the book, his kind of basic principle is that anxiety needs to be confronted, not run away from. Because the more you keep avoiding the anxiety, the bigger it becomes. And your brain is so creative that it comes with every kind of creative reason to avoid the anxiety. But as soon as you decide that you're willing to suffer the pain of confronting the anxiety, it usually diminishes substantially, and you can deal with the issues that are there behind it. You just have to have a different attitude towards suffering. That's all. But I already knew that because every single athlete ever suffers to become a top performer, right? Do you know that? Nobody is like born and then wins Wimbledon. Did you practice? No, I just got out there and hit the ball. No, nobody does that. There is just hours and hours and hours of jumping over things, running through things, training your body, pushing things. If you're a weightlifter, you don't see people in the gym going, oh, that's pleasant. Oh, how nice. Oh, this is easy. Sweat? Why are you sweating? I don't sweat. This is nice. I can't believe it. If anybody's doing that, you know for certain they're not growing. They are not maturing. Their body is not growing. It's not getting bigger. Like the reason that they're like this is because it hurts. It hurts really bad. And all your muscles are going, stop. And you just go, no, muscles, suck it up. We're going to be awesome. We're going to be ripped. Then the chicks will really love us. Now, every time I see people like that, like look at this guy's face. I'll do anything for these abs. I always think, do you treat your relationship with your wife like that? Like, are you going through that level of suffering to build a better relationship with your wife? Or are you just kind of going, I'll try to be nice to her and we'll work something out and we'll do our best. Sorry, they put firecrackers in it today. Sorry, that's on me, guys. Didn't put the cable in properly. What about lessons on learning a new skill? If you want to be a great violin player, you have to practice violin a lot. You have to miss out on a ton of things, and you have to try and push yourself. If you want to be a great ballet dancer, you have to stand on your toes. Like, it just hurts. It's painful, but it hurts, but it's good for you. My question is, every time I see people doing things like that, I think to myself, do they do the same thing with their finances? Or every time they're feeling a bit low about themselves, do they buy something new? When they want to have a great thing or be able to give money away to the poor, do they go without and have that same pain? Same thing when it comes to spiritual growth. If you are going to resist temptation, you have to be willing to suffer, because temptation is fun. It has all kinds of pleasing aspects to it. It's physically got pleasures. And if you're going to say no to it, you're going to feel like, oh, I just said no to something I really want. That's suffering. But it's the same thing if you want to grow spiritually. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to put time in with God. There's no way around it. You have to say no to fun things, and you have to say yes to things that don't seem fun but produce maturity in you. Can I hear an amen? Oh, good on you. The same thing goes with every kind of worry, every kind of fear, every kind of struggle, every kind of hopelessness in our lives. And if you want to be like Mother Teresa and help the poor and the dying of India, you can't do that from your home country, and you can't do that from the comfort of your own home. You have to go to where those people are to hug them. And if you're going to be there with the suffering, you're going to suffer too. But if you want things to be better, you can't do it without suffering. Do you hear what I'm saying? Did I say something really encouraging to you just then? The choices of your life, do they show that you avoid the pain? How you use your money? Like, some people use money as kind of, if you've got enough, and here in the Western world, we do have a lot. You can use money to kind of touch problems at a distance. I'll just give money to that. I'll make an example of somebody I know that has got a lot of money. One time was telling me a story about how they saw somebody that was hitchhiking. And I thought the story would go like this. Saw a person hitchhiking, picked them up, needed some help. I gave them some money, and everything was fine. But this person totally did not do that. They did not use money to solve the problem. They instead took the person to the source of the issue and then helped them resolve the issue when they got there. And I thought, see, that person doesn't try to stay away from suffering. That person's willing to get into suffering. But money is a way of standing at a distance. It also can be a way of alleviating the pain in your life because you can buy the drug, you can buy the alcohol, you can buy the TV program, you can buy the flat screen TV, you can buy the new car, the new shoes, the new hat. You can buy something to make yourself feel better because money can alleviate pain. But if you want to go through the difficult thing, you have to put your money away, or you have to spend it on something that'll help you confront the pain. Or how you evangelize. One time I was working at Balfour's. Everybody knows Balfour's. I was working at Balfour's. I was packing. I worked in the night, so I started at 2 a.m, and I'd pack the trays that went out into the trucks to all the bakeries and all the places that sold Balfour's products. So I'm working and packing there, and I'm just evangelizing everybody that's working there because that's what I liked to do. So I'm striking up conversations, having conversations, and there's always somebody in there that just feels like that's offensive, right? Most people are kind of like, yeah, we can talk about all kinds of things. They don't get angry. This one person just decides that it is the crime of the century that I would talk about Jesus in the workplace. And so he just decides, his name is Vinny, he just decided he'd just persecute me the whole time. And I thought to myself, this is great because now Vinny's shouting at me about complaints about God, and the only way that I can answer him is to shout loudly across the entire place so everyone gets to hear. Because I thought, I am happy to be persecuted to share the gospel. I'm happy for that. And he thought he could shut me up because he didn't think I would be willing to suffer. I'm like, surprise, Vinny, suffering is my friend. So we talked a lot, very loudly, about Jesus. And I thanked him very much for that. But if somebody was to persecute you because of your sharing your faith, would you stop? Because evangelism is difficult. If you're trying to share your faith, you will get persecuted. How do you confront your immaturities? Do you pander to them so that they don't upset you too much, or do you go after them? You've got issues in your life to confront. Most people do. Do you just avoid them because the consequences of confronting them make life too hurtful or painful, or do you just go for it? How about in your work? Do you work like suffering is good to advance you? Or do you work like, I'm just trying to find the easiest way to get this done so I don't have to pay the price? How about you spend your time? Or how about the trials that you avoid? I was playing sort of this weird game myself. I was recently on holidays, and the island that we were on, we actually went to Hamilton Island. I know, the suffering, right? Yeah, and you're now like, oh, you just lost credibility with me. So we're on Hamilton Island, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's kind of steep. Like, there's no flatness. And I love to go for runs on my holidays. I like to get a good 45-minute run every day on a holiday. And there's no flat place to run. But there is these high points, these 2 viewpoints on the island. And you have to hike to get to them. And I thought, I'm gonna run to get to them. So I ran to both of them. I'm just like, run. So there's one. I'm just like 45 minutes of uphill running and then upstairs running. I'm like, and I thought, because I physically, I've got this attitude towards suffering that every single pain that I go through is actually going to help my lungs grow. And it totally did. Now when I come back here and I'm running, I'm not even out of breath at all. I'm running around like, where's the challenge? Because I need something stronger to challenge me now. Can I just ask you this? What is your attitude to trials? Are trials something you look forward to, or are they something you try to avoid? Now, Jesus was tempted by Satan to avoid suffering. And the person who was used for that was the Apostle Peter. So from that time on, it says in Matthew 16, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. Isn't that great news? He's telling his disciples this. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." But he turned and he said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me because you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but the things of man." Now just think about this.
Jesus tells the people, I'm about to suffer, and Satan goes, oh no, don't suffer, you shouldn't suffer, and he uses Peter to do that. Because, let me tell you this, can I just have your attention just for a moment? Satan is giving you this logic all of the time. You shouldn't have to suffer. Things should be easier. If it's hard, then God's not in it. And Jesus is going to suffer, and Satan gives him the logic of mankind. Suffering is bad. But see who's the character? Peter, right? This is really important. Peter is the guy. Because Peter is the guy later in the story that when Jesus is being crucified, who runs? It's Peter, right? And why does Peter run? Because Peter doesn't want to suffer. Jesus is dying. I don't want to die too. So he's like, lesson learned, run for hill. Like, it's simple. But he betrays Jesus and he can't get through it. But later on in the Bible, he figures it out. Listen to this wisdom from the book of 1 Peter. Since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourself in the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the human passions, but for the will of God. For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. Do you see that? Peter figured it out. Arm yourself with the same attitude of Jesus because Jesus suffered and was glorified. We too need to go through that same process and understand that suffering, confronting what we are afraid of, going through things that we don't want to do, talking to people that we don't want to talk to, being part of a process that makes us feel uncomfortable is good for us to grow. And Peter says you've got to arm yourself with the same attitude of Jesus. It's good. He says, at the end of all things is at hand, therefore be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. He says, everything is coming to a conclusion. Stay on track with what you're supposed to be doing. Be sober-minded, be clear-minded. This is the job that we're on. Moses wrote a psalm. Now, I know most people think that the Psalms are psalms written by David, but they actually have several authors in them. And there is one psalm that was written by Moses. And Moses said this as a kind of a punchline for his thoughts on life when he was old. He says in Psalm 90, verse 12, teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. And 1 Peter 4:7 says, the end of all things is at hand. Be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Both of these people are saying you have to have the end in mind to make a decision like this. You have to have a big picture perspective. You have to understand where you're going and what life is about. If not, you will just live for the moment. You will live for the pleasures of the moment. You will live for this moment of feeling good rather than going through the tough time that will make you better. You have to see past the circumstance that you're in and to see the good thing that's going to come about it at the end. Some years ago, somebody came to see me. We ended up spending quite a bit of time talking. This person had incredible difficulty in their lives. I don't want to give details because I could eventually give something away. But this person was going through things that any person among us would feel nothing but compassion for them. And I said, how long have you been dealing with this? 25 years. I'm like, 25 years living in this pain. I said, how come you've never talked to me about this before? Because I was afraid of talking about why. You see, When people are hurt, they get sometimes very, very ashamed. And shame is sometimes the most painful emotion that people will ever feel. And so I said, let's draw it out. Now, if you don't, this is the way that God is. He is not embarrassed about your failures. You don't need to feel shame. When I'm counseling somebody, there's nothing but love, understanding, and compassion. Because the fear of the pain of embarrassment is so great, it keeps people bottled up and beneath the ice. It keeps people in that shell and not willing to go and push through, because the pain of embarrassment, of telling the story of how much you were hurt, is so painful that it keeps you from going to the thing that helps you. You need to know that God sees the big picture. And God is going to get you there if you participate, but you have to be willing to experience the pain before you experience the release. I feel like this message isn't going very well. I'll switch. There are people in this room that your destiny is so much bigger than what you're living right now. But you're not willing to pay the price to get there. And God is trying to say to you, there is glory on the other side, but you have to seek him. You have to pray so much longer than you're praying. You have to trust so much more than you're trusting. You have to be willing to experience that uncomfortable sacrifice of letting go of what you have now, or you're never going to get to the thing that God dreamed for you. Some of that is you need to go get counseling. Some of it is you need to get studying your Bible. Some of it is you need to be seeking God. Some of it is you need to be finding out why God made you. And you're not going to find out by a little bit of oh, God, what do you think? All right, not too bad. Okay, move on. You've got to dig in prayer. You've got to really seek the Lord. And I'll tell you this, that is a price to pay. And Moses didn't want to pay the price. But eventually he went, you know what? I would rather have what Christ has than have what the world can give. And so I'll suffer. And he suffered. But he became a legend and a leader for all of us.
Well, thank you for watching that video. Did you know that you can watch more content by clicking this link right here? Also, make sure that you get onto our YouTube channel and subscribe, because that way you'll be kept in touch with new videos that are coming out all week.